So if you've come across basically any language learning advice ever, you've probably heard someone say, it's a process, just have fun and enjoy it. And you might have thought, gee, thanks for that, I'd never have thought of trying to enjoy myself. That's what I've been doing wrong, just let me remove this scalpel from my thigh.
This is because there's a disconnect between the idea of immersing in a language that you don't understand and what that experience is really like. We think it's going to be cool and character building and an interesting cultural journey, and it is all of those things, but most of us would like the cultural journey to be over with a little bit sooner rather than lasting for 3,000 hours. So in this video, we're going to talk about how to have fun in a language that you don't yet understand.
So first up, we need to swap out our idea of watching content in our target language with trying to notice things in it.
People mistakenly believe the REFOLD approach, that is an immersion-based approach to language learning, is all about just bumming out on the couch with chips and a drink, waiting for the target language to sink in, hopefully before some kind of heart disease does.
And like all good myths, there is some truth to it. It is about absorbing the language naturally over thousands of hours of exposure, so it's true that you're going to watch and listen to a ton of your target language, but before you go and grab your snacks, remember that your main goal is not to watch content, it's to notice things. Don't expect the story to entertain you because you won't be able to understand enough to follow the story. You wouldn't expect a Finnish comedian's gig to be funny if you didn't speak Finnish, nor should you expect your first spy thriller in French to be thrilling before you've learned very much French.
Instead, your goal should be to just notice things. Can you hear the verb for to be, or to look, or to run? Whatever you've been exposed to already, can you actually hear that? Are there entire sentences that made sense to you? It's this stuff that is the thrilling aspect of it. You get a natural high when you notice things, when you realize you're getting better, even when you pick up on little bits that you didn't know. It is interesting and fun as long as you go in with the right attitude.
But even with the right attitude, it can still be a slog to get through things when you don't understand much at all. So the next thing to consider is what you're watching.
Let's take, for example, Kung Fu Panda versus The Imitation Game. Well, that's obvious, you'd say. Kung Fu Panda is meant for kids, it's going to be easier to understand. Well, you'd actually be surprised by how complex the language in kids' movies can really be. But the much more important difference is that one of them is more visually interesting.
The Imitation Game is not meant to be visually interesting. For films like that, great effort goes into making sure that the light doesn't draw attention to itself. But with high-budget animations, every frame is made to look as captivating as possible, so it should be pretty obvious which one will be more enjoyable when you can't understand what's being said.
I remember discovering this years ago when we tried to watch the film A Very Long Engagement, and for some reason we couldn't get the English subtitles to work, but having seen the film already, I chose to just watch it anyway, and I was blown away by the cinematography and the music that I'd never really noticed while watching with subtitles.
So if you're struggling with immersion, don't choose films that are all about intrigue and dialogue and the who and the what and the where and the how. Instead, choose films that look good and sound good, and you'll find that immersing isn't such a chore.
And by the way, yes, you should watch things that you've watched before. Obviously, you don't want to do this all the time, but remember that you acquire a language when you comprehend a language, and comprehension is much more likely when you already have some idea of what's going on.
This is another plus for animation, because animated content generally has a much greater selection of languages and the dubbing is far less obvious, so there'll be something that you've seen before that you can now watch in your target language. The last point is to give yourself permission to celebrate. I said that taking in content won't be like it is in languages that you already speak, so don't expect that it's just going to be all popcorn and Pepsi.
This is content that was made for people who grew up speaking this language, so there's going to be lots that you don't understand, and that's perfectly normal. But the bits that you do understand, that's awesome. We call these small wins and you can celebrate them. I say this because we sometimes feel like we shouldn't pat ourselves on the back for understanding basic things, but languages are never basic, it's just that some people have done it so much that they make it look easy. You should give yourself permission to celebrate the small wins, whatever that means for you at your level.
I put this at the start and the end because improving in a language is rewarding but can also be frustrating.
You'll understand whole paragraphs at once and then miss entire sentences. That's just kind of how language works. It's multifaceted. It's not just about vocab, there's speed, dialect, accent, context, assumed knowledge, etc. And as you understand more, you'll realize that there's more that you don't understand. As you master one thing, you'll become a beginner at another. That's just language learning for you. So I'll say it again, celebrate the small wins. Hopefully this video has given you some ideas for how to make your immersion time more enjoyable. If it has, or if you think I left anything out, make sure to let me know in the comments. If you don't know what REFOLD is, check out the link in the description for everything you need to know about immersing in a foreign language so that you can stop learning one and start acquiring one for real. My name's Lamont. I'll see you next time.